Hi there, welcome to one more episode of Diversilíngua, and today we are going to talk with Polyglot about his language journey. We have a special guest today. It is Constanze from this language journey, and we will talk with her about the language learning process that turned her into a polyglot, and also about her experience as a language teacher of English and German. I'm your host, Diego, and before we start our chat, I will ask you to follow Diversilíngua on the social media. This is a simple action that can make our show even bigger. We are mainly on Instagram and YouTube, and you can also join our group on Telegram. The links for the Telegram group and our social media are available on the description of this episode. So now coming back to our beloved guest, Constanze. Constanze is from Germany, of course, and she's been living abroad since 2009. She lived in different countries and is currently traveling to different countries as a digital nomad. She can be considered a polyglot since she can speak German as a native, English, French, Spanish, Portuguese, Dutch, Italian, and Japanese. Oh my gosh. Moreover, she can teach English and German. Welcome to the show, Constanze.
Thank you for having me.
So I started to follow Constanze on Instagram, and I found it amazing to see her progress with the language. And before we start the topic about your language journey, Constanze, can you summarize a little bit about the countries that you have already lived?
Yeah, I'm trying to make this short, condense it. I have lived in, I think, 7 countries in the last 14 years. I've lived in a few European countries, mainly for my business degree when I was studying. So that was the Netherlands mainly. I lived a little bit in Spain and in France. And for work, I've lived in Australia, Japan, and Canada, other than Germany. And I also did some other little, stints. So I did an exchange semester in South Korea, and I spent a few months in Italy and in Brazil to learn the languages like Italian and Portuguese.
Oh my God. Yeah. So have you already been in Brazil?
Yes, I have. I spent about 5 to 6 months there in 2017, 2018.
So I'm from Fortaleza. I think that most of our listeners are from Fortaleza.
Okay.
Have you visited Fortaleza or the northeast of Brazil?
I haven't visited Fortaleza, unfortunately. I have been to the northeast. If you consider by the northeast, I'm guessing it is. Salvador and that
great.
area.
That's awesome. So and what was Brazil for you? It was like you expected, or
I went to Brazil not expecting anything. It was a very spontaneous decision that I had. I just suddenly found a reason to go there, and then I ended up there. I was planning on staying for 2 weeks, and it was just so much better. It was just amazing, so that I ended up staying for that long, and I actually came back because you can only stay 3 months as a tourist. So I came back again the year after because it was that great. Yeah.
What do you like the most there?
I love the language. The language is so beautiful. I just really like it's so nice and melodical, and people are so nice. It goes, the people and the language together. It's just a great, nice atmosphere there, I think.
Oh, great. So now let's talk about your language journey. Can you tell us about your background and how you became fluent in so many languages?
Sure. I'm actually from a very monolingual family. So my parents don't speak any language other than German. I grew up in a very German household. I didn't hear about foreign languages until I was 10. So and then when I was 10, in Germany, you go to high school when you are 10. This is the school that you stay until you graduate from the whole school system. And they offered a bilingual program. So I actually went to a sort of a bilingual school, which was 70% in German, 30% in English. And I started having a lot of classes taught in English right away, right? That blew my mind. It was so fascinating. I loved English. So I just, learned that a lot. And then in Germany, many students learned 2 or 3 foreign languages in high school. So I had French and Spanish as well, which is quite normal there, right? So I finished high school already speaking English, French, and Spanish as a good enough degree.
Awesome.
Like I loved it. I put a lot of energy and work into it, right? And I think I had very good teachers at school. And then for the rest, I just moved around a lot, all around the world to then be there to learn the language. I spent a year in Australia on a working holiday visa, so I perfected my English, if you want. I then moved to the Netherlands, where I studied at university. And even though university was in English, I just picked up Dutch while I was there because it's very close to German, right? So I just went there and talked to people, and this was quite easy for me there. And then I just did like a lot of exchange semesters. I went to France for 1 semester. I went to Spain for 1 semester, kind of like to work on those languages again, being in the country. And then I lived in Japan for a while. I was a teacher there. Learned Japanese while I was there because it was really, really necessary. Like you don't get far in English if you live in the countryside in Japan.
Can you still understand Japanese?
Yes, I can still understand basics. Like, I don't know, A2 level-ish conversations. This was 5-6 years ago, actually. Wow. Quite long, 2015. But I put a lot of effort into that while I was there. And then I learned Portuguese and Italian over the last few years because I was in Brazil for 6 months. And I just, when I'm in the country, I want to learn the language. Then I put all my time and effort into it. So I put a lot of time and effort into it when I was in Brazil. And I just spent 3 months in Italy last year. And I just put a lot of time and effort into like learning Italian as well. So so you can say most of the time I either try and find a job in the country or I studied there, right? Or I had some sort of a travel objective. So I pick up the languages a lot when I'm there, as well as studying at home beforehand, before I go to the country.
Awesome. Interesting. And how do you approach learning a new language? Or do you have any special method that you find out more effective than others?
It's a really, really tough question, right? I think a lot of people are searching for the one method, the one and only, the one method that will get you fluent. And I don't really have a good answer because I learned all my languages quite differently. Like I said, I was able to learn from the standard traditional high school system. I learned a lot. I learned English, Spanish, and French through that. A lot of people now say, you don't learn a language in high school. So I think I did. I also learned by just talking to people. I also learned by using apps, right? So I don't think that there is one like perfect method. I do think the one thing I want to say is like, when you first learn a new language, it sounds like something very strange. You think, what is this? I don't understand anything. It just sounds like noises, right? And sounds. And you think, this isn't a language. Where are the words? So I think the most important thing, like, first of all, is to like just listen to this language like so much until it no longer sounds so strange, right? So for example, I spent some time around people from China, and I was in China for a bit, and also same for Korean. Yeah. I don't speak, I neither speak Mandarin, Chinese, nor Korean, but because I have been around people with that language, the languages to me now sound familiar. They sound, quite normal. I realize they are languages. Yeah. And that means, that's the beginning, I think, because otherwise you feel like, I don't know where to start with this language. So I would just listen at first, and then slowly getting into it with anything really. You can take a class, you can use apps, right? Just do it a little bit every day, I think, or regularly every second day. I think that's the most important thing. If you study once a week, I think you don't see much progress, and you will get frustrated and bored, and you think, I will never learn this. So try to, spend some time on it as often as possible. 3 times a week is also good, but maybe not less than twice, because if you just have one lesson a week, I think it's not enough.
But what is your main purpose with your main objective when you are learning a language? I'm asking you that because sometimes I think I don't know. In my case, I rather learn a new language in order to communicate with people, to make friends, to get to know other culture better than just I know a language. I don't know. Sometimes I feel that some people just want to show up that they know language, and they don't communicate too much with natives and foreigners. I don't know. In your case, what would be?
Like I said, right? I have many of the languages I've learned were because I went to the country eventually, right? So I spent time in Brazil, I spent time in Italy, I was in France for a while, I was in French Canada for a while. Like in my head, I always wanted to use the language to communicate with people, right? This is the fun part. I'm not somebody who just reads a lot. I listen to YouTube and stuff, but most importantly, I want to speak, right? So that's why I say you have to practice regularly, and you also have to start speaking. You just have to try. A lot of people sit at home with their Duolingo, and they do it for 1 year, and they cannot say a single sentence, right? So you have to start speaking, try, find a tandem partner or teacher, and just get there. Go to the country and just start speaking to people,
Yeah. Wonderful. And can you speak about any specific challenge you faced when learning some languages that and how you overcame them?
So I'm currently learning Italian, and I spend a lot of time on Italian. And like we talked about quickly before, I find it very hard to learn several Romance languages at the same time. So I find it very hard to say, right now I'm learning Spanish, Portuguese, and Italian. I tried, and I found it impossible. I used my Duolingo in Portuguese and wanted to learn Italian through it. And it worked a little bit, but now the 2 languages for me, I confuse very much now, maybe because of this, right? Because I started learning Italian through Portuguese, actually. So I just decided, okay, if the languages are too similar, I need to give one language a break and just focus on one, because otherwise my head is too mixed up. You cannot work on all the languages all the time, so you have to prioritize one and leave the other, and just hope I will come back.
I think that some people think that when you are fluent, when you reach the fluency in a language, so that's it. But you should keep brushing that language, because you can forget almost everything. I think that not everything, but a lot of things.
yeah, like I will say this, sorry, I haven't read any studies on this, so I'm not a scientist, but the languages I learned when I was very young are the easiest for me. So French, I learned when I was 12. And French, I never forget. And English, I learned when I was 10. I never forget these. Whereas all the languages over the last years, I have to work on more. I haven't spoken them that much, and maybe I learned them at a later stage. I don't know which one is true. Maybe I just haven't used them enough, right?
Yeah, right.
But I do think, right, you think, ooh, I got the B1 level, check, I'm done. That's not the case. You have to go back. And I'm right now also learning Japanese again, and I'm starting again from zero. Like,
oh my God.
I'm doing this for the third or fourth time, and it's frustrating, right? Like, this is another challenge. Yeah, when you have to start again from zero, it's a really not zero, but almost zero. Yeah, like beginner's level. It's frustrating. You think, I used to know this. Why don't I know this anymore? So you have to learn to just accept that, your language learning isn't just like a line, a linear curve that goes upwards. It just drops, and you have to start again and go up again, and then goes down again. And that's just the way it is, It's just, that's
I usually say that knowing a language, it is usually like a lifelong path, because you should keep brushing that language. You should keep trying to keep it up, because you can forget a lot of things that you have already learned.
Yeah, I agree. This is actually why I called my Instagram handle and things like This Language Journey, because I think, right, learning languages is such a endless journey. Like, you're never done. And a journey also often has like ups and downs, right? It's not a perfect path. So I kind of want to highlight that a bit. Also the struggles. Sometimes I write about the struggles that I find, not that it's not all amazing. So I agree.
Okay. Have you ever had any experience while traveling where speaking multiple languages came in handy?
Yeah, that's such a great question. I really love this question. I'll be honest, I think not that often. The only time when it comes in handy is if I'm the person who is interpreting between two other people who don't speak the same language. So, for example, say when I was in Brazil, I was traveling with a friend from Ireland who only spoke Spanish and English. And then if we had to go out and we had to organize things, I would try to speak Portuguese to the one person. They would answer in Portuguese. I would speak back in English to her, right? Like in this case, or if I spoke French and spoke French back to my friend, in this case, it's helpful, I think, if there are like more than two people involved, and you can be like the middleman who, helps to communicate. But otherwise, like, English is such a big language now. Like even in countries, like even in Brazil, like you will always find somebody who can speak some English, somewhere.
I think that English can open a lot of doors for you.
Yeah, for sure.
Now let's talk about your experience as a language teacher. How did you come out with the idea to become a language teacher?
It was a very random idea. In fact, I had never planned on becoming, well, that's not true. Okay. When I was younger, I always wanted to become a teacher. And then I decided to study business and do something else. But I was traveling in Asia quite a bit, and I was traveling in Japan, and I met a lot of foreigners who were all English teachers, because it's a very, very popular job when you're in Asia, especially in countries like China, Japan, Korea. Every foreigner, or most foreigners, are English teachers. And then I thought, maybe I should try this. Everyone is doing this. Let's try. even though I thought, yeah, but I'm German, right? Like I'm not a native speaker. Can I even do this? But I found a little volunteering opportunity. There was an English school in Japan that said, oh, you can volunteer for a few hours, just to see how you like it. And yeah, it was better than I thought. Okay. I would say like I didn't like fall in love with teaching from second one. I don't know. Like it was more like, oh, I can do this. And I was like, oh, I can even teach English. And I had a very good mentor, like my boss at the time, or future boss, told me, oh, you can do it. I will mentor you. I can guide you. And I was a bit unsure and decided, I had no other plans in life at the time. I was like, okay, let's go do it. So I just, became a teacher at that school and was like mentored there by my boss at the time. And then I really started falling in love with the language when I noticed, that I'm quite good at it. Like I enjoy it. So from then on, I just kept on teaching, like went on to other countries to teach. So,
Amazing. Yeah, because sometimes I think that sometimes it is hard to feel that you can teach people the language. In my case, I like to talk in English, to speak in English with people. Actually, in this podcast, I have a small group of people who get together to speak, to practice English.
Nice.
I'm not really a teacher, but I'm like a guide of the conversation. And but sometimes I don't believe in myself that I can teach people. But it's interesting that you had like a mentor in your path, and you could. Maybe I think that I heard in another podcast that he saw that you could teach people in English, and he saw like a potential in you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That I didn't see at the time, right? So
Yeah.
it was good to have someone push you and tell you you can do it. Sometimes you need that push, right?
Yeah. I see.
Yeah. But I guess also what I want to say is like, you must notice this yourself. Often we think, and I'm sorry if I say this, but often we think we have to be perfect at something.
Yeah.
But in the end, if you're honest, like as long as you're better than the other person, then you can teach them something, right?
Yeah.
And as a teacher, it doesn't mean that I'm God and perfect. It just meant that, well, I could teach what I knew to people who were at a lower level. And then I taught myself, right? And I would go home and like read English grammar books because I wasn't sure. And I would like teach myself, right? I would educate myself to get at a higher level to then teach people that were at a higher level, and slowly built up my knowledge and that, right? So,
okay. Yeah. So now, can you describe a little bit how are your language classes?
Yeah, sure. First of all, I try to only speak the target language. So I'm a really big advocate of, if I teach English, I will speak English to you. And if I teach German, then I will only speak German to you. It is possible if you have, the time, and if the student goes on the right with you, it's all possible. And then I think it's really important that I would say my classes are like a certain mix, a bit of everything. I try to give the student a lot of speaking time. I think these days you can get so much of the information yourself, right? If you really want to know the grammar explanation, there are a gazillion resources that can help you. So I'm trying to help the students with what they cannot get through self-study, which is mainly speaking and giving them feedback, right? And also telling them where their problem zones are, right? Telling them where their holes are, being like, oh, this is a grammar topic maybe you should look into, or kind of like uncovering the little problems that they have. Because, I think, again, in our head, a teacher should be this traditional teacher who teaches from the book. And I believe that part of it can be like this, but I'm also like, sort of a coach and a mentor who like takes people by the hand and guides them through their language journey, right? I make sure that they stay motivated, they don't give up, they enjoy it, they have fun. It's so important that they have fun, during the class, that they feel confident to start speaking, right? And if they need then some grammar practice, or if they need vocabulary practice or writing practice, of course I can do all that. But my main focus is to make the student feel confident, comfortable, and happy and enthusiastic to speak and to apply and use the language. So
interesting. Now let's talk about the German language, because you are from Germany. If you visited Germany as a German language learner, what would shock you? Which cultural difference would you notice?
In
your opinion?
Quite hard to know, right, from the perspective of a German. As a German learner, I think the local dialects would throw you off quite a bit. Like there are a lot of, every country has dialects, right? So you probably know what I mean. And I do think that the German dialects are quite strong in some regions, not in all. But if you go to the south, especially where I'm from in the south, it's really hard to understand. I had lots of German students come to me and say,
"Are you from Bavaria?"
Not Bavaria, but the region next to it. But it's, also has a tricky accent. And I think it's quite frustrating if you learn German for a long time and then you go there and you hear people speak, because they use sometimes different words, different vocabulary. Sometimes there's some grammar that they do differently. Like they will actually make maybe some sort of, not many, but little grammar mistakes. And as a student, you will probably be confused and think, what? So that, and also that people, they're not really small talk people. I'm sure you've heard this, right? Germans are quite straight to the point.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go.
I worked with them.
Okay.
I worked with the German people. And it is interesting that nowadays I can notice the accent in English, nowadays, because I'm used to work with them, and
but then maybe normally people are quite okay, let's cut to the chase, let's go. There's not so much warm up or small talk or hi, how are you? In some countries every conversation starts with hi, how's it going, what's up? And in German it's like, hi, how can I help you? Let's go. But maybe it's good, because if you learn German, you get the information like condensed and straight ahead. And it's clear what they're trying to say. It's not like some languages, like in Japanese, you have to interpret so much what people are trying to say because they're not direct. They talk a lot around, they're beating around the bush. And in German, it's very much this and it. So maybe it's a shocking thing, but a good thing, so to speak, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And lastly, where is your next travel destination? And what languages are you planning to practice while you are there?
I'm actually going back to Japan finally this year. It's been so long because it was closed due to the pandemic until last year, October. So Japan only fully opened in October 2022. So I've been dying to go back. And I'll go back for on a tourist visa. I'll take some language classes while I'm over there. I'm going to go to my old home, so to speak, try to speak Japanese with my friends who don't speak much English. That will be a very, good practice and good challenge, I think. And we'll see how it goes. You can read all about it on my Instagram then. I'll describe my struggles getting back into that language.
I'm willing to see everything that you are going to find there.
It will be mostly food pictures and and probably like old temples and Japanese gardens, because that's what I really love over there.
So here in Diversilíngua we have a cultural moment, but before I get there, I'd like to leave a space for you to share your social media with our audience and how people can find you on the internet? Or if they want to, for example, if I want to have a class with you, how can I get to you?
Yeah, so you can mostly find me on my Instagram. I have an Instagram that is called This Language Journey. Okay, so THIS for this, language like language, and then journey like the word journey. And there you can find a link where I've linked to group classes that I teach, and I also teach one-on-one classes. So you can find everything in my bio. Yeah, so feel free to reach out to me there.
So now that you shared with us your social media, before we conclude our episode, we always ask our guests to give a cultural recommendation to our listeners. So can you recommend a book, a movie, a TV show, or any cultural thing to our listeners? It doesn't mean that you will share something related with a language, you know? You can. What do you want?
Sure. Have you heard of the I think it's a Netflix series, it's called Dark. It's a German show. This is what all my students love. Okay,
I love it.
Okay, this was the first thing I thought of, because you're learning German, and if anyone is learning German, I think this is probably the main well-known TV show. So that would have been my recommendation as a German
learner. That TV show made me think about learning German. Because,
okay, great.
Because I found out amazing. One of the best TV shows I've ever watched.
Perfect. Well, then you agree with my recommendation.
Yeah. So
this is endless.
And now, how about the Portuguese? How did you learn it, and why? And can we talk a little bit in Portuguese?
Yeah, we can try. I will first answer in English, then you can ask me a question in Portuguese, and I will. So I traveled to Brazil in 2018 for a volunteering for 2 weeks, and I went there and I decided, it's a great country, it's a great language, I should learn it more. And then I just started using Duolingo like crazy, and I started purchasing. I have a really good Portuguese learning website. It's called Semantica Portuguese. It's a video program where they have a little like a telenovela for Portuguese learners. So then they break it down into little parts, and then they teach you everything that they say. So they show you the clip, then they explain the vocabulary, they explain a little bit of the grammar, and then you keep going through the story. So you watch a full, it's a full story. You're excited to see what happens next, and it's all in Portuguese. So,
what great tip you gave to our listeners. Because we have some foreigners. There is a guy from the United States that usually listen to our podcast, to our episodes, and maybe
I love it.
He's going to see that website, to look at that website, because he's trying to learn Brazilian Portuguese.
Yes, this is important to say, right? It's for Brazilian Portuguese. It's set in Rio, so they have the Rio accent. Yes.
Okay.
It's, I think,
Okay. I will try to ask you a question in Portuguese. I don't know if you are going to.
Let's see.
To make it.
I don't know.
Fale mais sobre sua aventura no Brasil. O que achou mais diferente dos outros países que já visitou?
Então, eu viajei por 6 meses no Brasil. Viajei antes na Amazônia. Achei muito interessante. O que eu achei surpreendente era que no Brasil as pessoas têm pode ser uma pessoa de qualquer raça ou cor de pele, eu acho. E é possível que seja brasileiro.
Qualquer
Então,
cor de pele, né?
sim.
Isso é. O brasileiro é bem diferente, bem diverso.
Isso. Então, eu achei que isso era muito bom para mim de foreigner.
Yeah. I've already heard that the Brazilian passport is one of the most valued in the dark market, black market. Yeah, because anyone can be a Brazilian, you know.
Right, like, so maybe you see this differently, being Brazilian, right? I'm sure there are problems like maybe racial issues. I'm sure they exist. But from an outsider's perspective, when you enter the country as a foreigner, you look around and you see people from all races that are Brazilian, right?
Yeah.
Like, I met Japanese people who spoke fluent Portuguese and fluent Japanese, and you meet people from, they're Germans, they're Spanish, Italians, but they're all like, they are Brazilian.
One of my best friends here in Porto is from São Paulo, and she's a Brazilian, but her grandparents were from Japan, you know.
Yeah.
So
you feel good as a foreigner. Yeah.
And here in Porto, people think that she's from China, you know. Because there are a lot of Chinese here.
So maybe this is for people that are from Europe, right? Like, I'm from Europe, and in Europe, I don't think Europe is as multicultural in terms of race, I would say, if I can be so blunt. Most people to me seem white. It's changing. So if you're from the USA, maybe this is not so surprising, but I think from Europe, it still makes a difference. Whereas in Brazil, it just felt very, balanced. You could like look like you want it, and you could be Brazilian. That was so cool.
But that was great. I think that you can understand me in Portuguese, and you can speak a little bit of Portuguese.
It's more like my head is like Italian.
Yeah, I think that it wouldn't be a problem for you to travel to Brazil again to talk with people, because I think that Brazilians are so helpful with foreigners in order to teach them Portuguese. So that's great.
I want to go back in the future for sure, like definitely, just to travel, eat.
Amazing.
Food is good.
So thanks for being here, Constance. It was awesome, the conversation with you. I hope that our listeners can find you on the internet and can reach you, and I hope maybe in the future we can talk more about other topics.
Sure. It was a pleasure.
And it was a pleasure for me as well. And maybe we can see each other in person someday. I don't know.
I'm also planning on traveling to Portugal at one point, so I'll be around too.
Who knows? Once I interviewed a girl from South Korea, and here in Porto, when I moved to Porto, I could meet her when she was traveling around Europe. So that was crazy,
The world is smaller than you think. I have learned this over the last years of my life. You always run into people again when you least expect it. So, you always meet somebody twice.
So thank you very much. And that's it for another episode of Diversilíngua, where we explore the fascinating world of language, culture, and traveling. I want to thank you all for tuning in and join us on this journey of discovery. And I hope you can find our group on Telegram. You just need to search for Diversilíngua. And thumbs up in this content, leave a comment, and until next time, bye.